Hey y'all, welcome back to another Mask Monday. This is going to be more like a crafts Monday, but we're going to turn this pumpkin into a jack-o'-lantern mask. Alright, so this is the DIY pumpkin from Lord Grimley. I'm super excited about this. It's a really creative, fun idea that they came up with to basically send you a mask that, it's been sculpted, molded, cast, painted, all the hard stuff's been done for you. But what they've done is they've allowed you to be more creative with your mask and go in and choose what eye cuts and everything that you want. It was sculpted by Lerche, who does a bunch of the sculptures for Lord Grimley. I think it's just super cool. It's like kind of not quite rotted, but it's just got like enough rot to where you get a lot of cool texture and everything. I love this neck. It has this like kind of swamp thing, like viney base to it, and so you get like a neck, like a bib there for that. And then the back of the mask is also really cool. Obviously they know that you're probably not going to cut the back, so they went ahead and they added more detail just to make it more interesting. It's got this like kind of green spider web mold kind of on it that is just very cool. The paint job is like just a classic dark pumpkin orange with like a brown rub out, and then of course green for this top stem and like the viney stuff on the bottom. Just a really cool display piece on its own. You could foam fill it if you wanted to make it like a full prop. It's just like during the Halloween season, you're gonna get a pumpkin and carve it into a jack-o'-lantern. They thought, let's just take that idea and turn it into a mask. What's great about this is it's not gonna rot away for at least 10 years, 20 years, 40 years hopefully, but it's not gonna just, by the time you get to Halloween, be rotted and all that. You can cut this whenever you want and keep it forever. So what's gonna come when you get this is the mask, obviously, and then you're gonna get this black kind of mesh here. And what we're gonna do with this is once we cut the eye holes and the nose and the mouth, we're gonna cut this into pieces and glue it to the inside of the mask so that whenever you look at it, it's just gonna be blacked out, but you'll be able to see through it whenever you wear it. So they sent that along with it. And then the other thing that you're gonna get is this piece of paper right here, and it has like some basic information about what you're gonna be doing, and it has the link to their website where they also have a tutorial video. Also at that link is where you can download the templates. The templates, it should be said that you could really download the template for any jack-o'-lantern. Like you could pick a Jack Skellington template and do that on here too if you wanted to. It really should, any like pumpkin jack-o'-lantern template should apply to this. But they have, I think, 5 designs that they have here. And then this last one is the one that I'm gonna be doing. It's obviously the simplest one out of all of them. It's really not the only reason why I picked it, but honestly, I've just always preferred the classic jack-o'-lantern look. Every year, like, we all get around and we'll carve our pumpkins, and mine's always like the simplest, most basic, just classic jack-o'-lantern. That's just my favorite way that they look. I never really get very detailed with mine, so I was happy that they had a pretty simple one, so that's the one that I went ahead and printed out. As far as the process, you're gonna need a few other supplies. So these are just like regular Office Depot scissors. I wish they were a little smaller, but we make do. And then these are what's called cuticle scissors, and I think I've talked about these in some other tutorials. They're basically curved, and the reason why we use these scissors a lot is because if you're taking a seam line off of a mask, you can get really close up to it like that, and just kind of follow the curvature of the mask. I'll probably be using both sets of scissors today. If you're only gonna get one, I would look on Amazon or something for just like some smaller, sharp scissors. I think Fiskars makes some. I think those are the ones that the Lord Grimley dude uses when he does his video. You'll also want to get some tape. So it's just painter's tape. This is good because it's not gonna like stick really hardcore to the mask. It can just go on and off, and it shouldn't create any issues. We're gonna use this for a couple things. One thing we're gonna use is just to map out where our eyes are gonna sit. And then the other thing is once we cut out the template, we're gonna tape it on to the mask and then trace over it with a Sharpie. So that's the other thing that you'll want. You could use just paint or a pen or whatever you want, but a Sharpie should be good for everything you're gonna have to do, because the other thing that you're gonna use the Sharpie for is once you've cut the eyes and the nose and the mouth out, the edges are gonna be just that like yellow latex color. So once they're cut out and everything, we'll just go in there and cover all that latex with just black, and then that mixed with the screen in the background of it, it should just be blacked out. Again, you could do that with paint. You could do that with like some black nightshades paint that we have on our website. I'm just trying to use just supplies that are just around the house, like a Sharpie. That being said, the other thing that hopefully you have around your house is just some glue. I haven't tested this yet. I'm honestly not sure how well the Elmer's school glue is gonna stick to the latex. What this is for gluing the black sheet behind the eyes and the mouth and everything. I'm gonna try to use this first because I assume most people have just some kind of regular white glue laying around. But if it doesn't work, I'm gonna switch to this, which is just mask making latex. I know that the latex will stick to latex. I use it like that all the time. Latex sticks to latex. And this will soak it up just fine. As far as I know, I haven't tried it yet, but I think it should be fine. The best thing you could use for that part would be a hot glue gun. I just didn't bring one. I just forgot to bring one to work today. So we make do with what we have, and it should go pretty smoothly. So what else? Oh yeah, Mountain Dew. Make sure you have that as well. If you don't have Mountain Dew, you're not gonna really enjoy this very much. Okay, so what I'm gonna do first is just figure out where my eyes are gonna sit on the mask. I'm gonna do that by just throwing the mask on, and then I got these two little pieces of tape that I'll kind of use to basically just map out around generally where my eyes are. Doesn't have to be exact, you just need to be able to make sure that you can kind of see. So putting masks on is not something I do. I have a gigantic head and a lot of hair, so it's very painful. Oh God. Oh. Oh. All right, so that is approximately where my eyes are gonna sit. I'll just want to double check and make sure it's centered. I'm more worried about it looking good aesthetically than wearing it. But it doesn't have to be exact, it just needs to be approximate. So that works. Now what I'm gonna do is cut out my template. I'm gonna start by just going in here, and I'm gonna cut this black stuff out first, and then I'll kind of just cut it all around to make it a little smaller to get onto the mask. Yeah, this is like really fun because I mean, if you're into masks, which obviously I am, but you don't make your own, this is like a fun way to kind of get involved in kind of making your mask. But obviously, you know, everyone does this every year for Halloween, so it's a good way to get in the Halloween spirit and just have like a permanent mask that you had a hand in creating. You could draw and design your own design as well, and you could well, you have to be careful. I don't know about, I was gonna say for a second you could put a candle in here and display it, but A, it's gonna get stolen really quickly, and B, obviously fire inside of a latex mask might not be the safest idea. So what I'm gonna do is just kind of map this out. It looks like my eyes are wider than this. It only needs to be approximate. It's mostly important for height, not so much width, as much as you just want it to be on the line where your eyes are going to be. Wherever the eye holes are, you'll be able to see through them if the height is correct. So really I want to make kind of a creative decision as far as how I think it's going to look on the mask. So I'm just going to cut this design out. Obviously, careful not to cut into it and mess your whole thing up. So now I have a better idea of how that's going to look. So I think I'm gonna do it a little bit more like that, because I'm looking at this being the top of it, obviously, the stem, and then I'm kind of following that to kind of try to stay centered. There's also like kind of a point that this net comes to, so that's gonna be my middle. So rather than going like this and following that eye, I'm just gonna be looking at that eye. I don't care that you can't see that blue. It doesn't really matter, as long as you're on the right height. So that, as far as this whole thing, it's centered, it's at the right height. That's what I'm gonna go with. Just hold that there, and I'll take these things that I used for the eye, and I'll just start tacking it down. I kind of said whenever I cut it out to get rid of that rectangle, you still need to leave enough on the edges so that you can tape it. So make sure you don't just, you know, like, oh, I only need that, and like cut it to there. You know, it would work, but you wouldn't really have a solid way of taping it down. You want to, when you're taping this down, try to make it as flat to the mask as possible so you don't get any overage on the Sharpie, because you're gonna cut, and if you go under this at all, then you're gonna see the Sharpie and you're gonna have to either cut more than you wanted to or paint your mask. Okay, so I'm kind of seeing that when you're taping it down, it gets kind of bunched up like that. But as long as this is flat to it, you should be good. As far as getting that tooth to go down, I think I'm gonna do one of these rolly things. So yeah, I'm just gonna go in, I'm just gonna trace the outline of it, and then for these parts where it's sticking up, I'm just gonna kind of push the edge of this to that and just kind of follow it. Okay, so I'm all finished up like tracing the design onto the mask. I thought I was gonna use the Sharpie the whole time, but honestly you might want to use just like a regular pen. It was difficult to get into the corners, so at the end I just grabbed just a regular, just like round stick pen, and just to get into the corners and really get that line more defined on the edge. So now that's on there, I'm gonna just take this off and we'll kind of look at it and see what we have. I don't know if we'll have to make some adjustments or not. It might look weird. All right. So yeah, I'm gonna go in with the pen now and just redefine some stuff before I get to cutting. Okay, so what I'm seeing that I don't like, and it probably has something to do with the bend, is this is like extremely close. There's not much of an opening to that mouth. And so what I'm gonna do to fix this problem is I'm gonna go down a little lower on this. When you're cutting this out, you're not gonna cut on the inside of this line. You need to cut on the outside of it so you get rid of that black on the front. I'm gonna just kind of complete this line for my own sanity. Whenever I get started, it should be a little bit easier. And like here, I like missed a little bit, so I'm just gonna connect that for myself. Same here. Okay, yeah, I think that that's good enough. So I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting. I'm probably, again, I'm using my cuticle scissors for most of this, just because I feel like I have more control and they're smaller, they can get in the little areas and all that. And the curve isn't really bothering me. I'm used to cutting latex with this curve, so I think I can keep the lines fairly straight. You're basically just redoing what you did with the paper. I'm gonna need to fold it so I can kind of chop it a little bit, and then I'll just start going around. So you're just redoing what you already did. This latex is fairly thick, so it might be interesting. But right now I'm cutting 2 spots, so it takes more effort. And again, I just want to reiterate, I'm cutting on the other side of this Sharpie so that there's no black. So I don't want to like spend my time cutting all of this out and then I have this black ring around it. I want to clean up those lines by cutting it. And also, just with cutting latex, you want to kind of hold it, and you can kind of pull it, and if it's tighter, you'll be able to cut it a lot easier. Okay, cool. So that's gonna do it for the hard part, scary part. My thumb feels really crappy. So yeah, if you want to get some of these or regular scissors that are smaller, maybe get one that has more of a grip, but I'm used to it now, but it still sucks. So the next step I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the Sharpie and I'm gonna go in here and I'm gonna get rid of all these white latex spots that you see, and I'm just gonna black them out. Lines are a little bit jagged and stuff, but again, I was moving pretty quickly, and once you put the black on there, you really can't notice. And then again, it's like a jack-o'-lantern, they have slightly jagged cuts and all that, so really it works well, and I'm happy with it so far. So all we need to do now is flip it inside out and then cut little pieces of this mesh off and then glue them behind all these holes. So I could, I suppose, literally just do this all in one go, but I think just to be a little bit more efficient, I'll do it in 2. So I'll cut a strip off that's big enough for this, and then I'll do another one that's big enough for the mouth. So to glue this, I'm just gonna, with my finger, just rub some glue. This is obviously like really quick, really sloppy. I do like the method of, you see, like if you notice the second time I kind of trace around with a bunch of glue and then just kind of flatten it and kind of spread it into the mesh and let it soak it up. That's definitely the better choice. I think that it should be good enough, at least once this Elmer's glue dries. I'll give it another second. It should be good enough and stuck on there enough to flip it around. Again, I wouldn't really suggest Elmer's glue. I would do hot glue, or really like this latex probably would have worked fine as well. So yeah, I want to give it like 5 minutes just to let this Elmer's glue dry, and then we'll flip it in and we'll get some shots of it. We'll see what it looks like. Okay, so we let it dry for like 5 minutes. It's still a little wet in like the thick spots, but I think it should be holding it enough to flip it over. I guess we're gonna find out. Again, I would use hot glue, or maybe even like if you have it laying around, some like 5-minute epoxy that you could just brush on. Like that's what I would really do, thinking about it now, is just make some 5-minute epoxy, brush it on with the brush so it's like thin, and then by the time you're done brushing it on, you can just lay this on there and it's totally gonna stick to it. Wish me luck. Here we go. All right, so yeah, that worked. I got it all flipped around. It looks pretty good, so I'm happy with it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. Jack-o'-lantern, DIY pumpkin, Lord Grimley. All right, so that's gonna wrap up this week's Mask Monday. Hopefully you enjoyed seeing me work on this guy. Really, you don't need like any artistic talent to do what I did here. It's really simple, especially if you've ever done a jack-o'-lantern before. I'm sure you already know exactly what to do here. The biggest takeaways for me, again, as I mentioned, get a Sharpie with like a fine tip. If you have this dull, crappy tip like I do, it can make things pretty difficult. Scissors, make sure you have scissors, preferably better ones than this that can cut fabric and the latex. These again are called cuticle scissors. I use them for a whole bunch of stuff, but you can also get just like ones that don't have a curve, that are preferably a little smaller, maybe with a hand grip. Some pens as well, just like regular pens. You'll want like some painter's tape that's not going to stick too much. You wouldn't want to put like duct tape on this. You can rip the paint off. And then I used Elmer's glue. Again, my number one thing I would have done is to get the 5-minute epoxy and just brush that on. I think that that would be the easiest and most sticky way to do it, or hot glue. But it did work. That's what I used. And then also this is just liquid latex. Yeah, so you could also use that. I didn't end up using this though. And never forget your Mountain Dew. We'll see you next week for another Mask Monday. Let me know what I did wrong here in the comments, and we'll see you next week.